Hi, Mike Woods here. Several weeks ago, I talked about one of the great promises of God, and that's the 5 words where He tells us, I will be with you. And thinking about that in the particulars, how is God with us? And one of the things that has come to mind this week is John chapter 12, verse 32, where He says, And I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all men to myself. And so here's an example of where God has promised, one of many, that He is at work in the world to draw people who are lost far from Him into a relationship with Himself. We can then look at a passage like Revelation chapter 3, verse 8, and here's Jesus says, Behold, I have put before you an open door which no one can shut, because you have little power, have kept my word, and have not denied my name. And so here, what Christ is saying when He's speaking to the churches, He's like, I have given you an opportunity for service. I have given you an opportunity for the gospel that will not be closed. And He says it's because you're humble, because you're obedient to my word, and you're faithful to me. And we have seen evidence of this all over our church over the last 3 months. In the last 3 months, we have seen more than 840 people who came out for the first time guests, to our Zoom home church meetings. And that doesn't include all the other venues, YouTube teachings, and so forth. And when we think about that, what we're talking about is 840 people that God has drawn to Himself. 840 people that were prayed for, relationally invested in, and invited. And 840 people who all heard the gospel of Jesus Christ, many of them for the first time, and who in many cases are continuing to come out and in the dialogue and really considering the claims of Christ and the evidence that it's true. And that is just what's been happening in 3 months in Columbus, Ohio. If we take the lens out and we consider what God is doing through our global partners all over the world, thousands more every week are meeting in home groups and being exposed to the gospel of Christ. In East Africa, West Africa, Haiti, Cambodia, and Southeast Asia, literally thousands and thousands of people on a weekly basis are hearing the teachings, the claims of Christ, and coming to faith. And so we can see in our own situation and around the world that God is still at work, drawing people to Himself. He's still reaching lost people. He's still working through people who are humble, who are obedient to His word and faithful to Him. He's been doing that, He is doing that, and He's going to continue to do that. And one final added thought. We live in really strange times. COVID-19, economic uncertainty, and the current political and social unrest that's happening around us, and it can be confusing. But we need to remember that Jesus the gospel of Christ has the best answers to all these issues. The best answer to the uncertainty and the fear that comes from COVID-19 because of our sure hope and knowledge that He's with us and our hope for the future. The best ability to stand confidently in the midst of economic uncertainty, knowing that God is with us and knowing what our ultimate trust and hope is, not in wealth, but in Him. And when it comes to the racial divide in our country, no other message on earth besides the gospel has more power and more certainty. So we can have confidence. God is at work in the world. God works through faithful people. And God has the greatest answers that people need.
Hey guys, Ben Foust here. So we've all endured several months now of disrupted life. And now we're living through the stage of opening up and beginning to get to see each other and actually relate face to face. And it's great. But it's also a little bit tricky. Kind of like taking off a cast after breaking an arm. It's like we're flexing our relational muscles for the first time in a while, and maybe we're atrophied and a little bit out of practice relationally. And add on top of that, the remarkable cultural upheaval we've seen, the powerful images and feelings, the many opinions and ideas, the heated dialogue much of it happening online, and it's like, whoa. But as usual, the Bible has some encouragement and wisdom for us. You know what really comes in handy when times are difficult? Something that the Bible has a lot to say about is listening. The lost art of listening to one another. The Bible tells us that we have a God who listens to us, which I think is a tremendous encouragement. What a remarkable thing if you think about it. God who listens to us. Think about verses like Psalm 10:17. He says, "O Lord, you have heard the desire of the humble. You will strengthen their heart. You will incline your ear to vindicate the orphan and the oppressed." This idea of God inclining his ear toward us, that is so powerful. When we call on him, he turns his ear in our direction. Maybe you're feeling unheard or misunderstood these days, but know that God hears and listens intently and understands perfectly. Maybe you feel powerless, but think about this. You have the ear of the one true God. I realized recently that, I have so many things I'm worried about or troubled about. And while I spin and think and talk to people, I haven't even talked to God about it. That I can approach the throne of grace with confidence at any time. I can go right into the throne room of God to lay down my worries and my requests at the feet of the one who can really help and can really give peace. Do you have things weighing your heart down? Make time to pray them out to the Lord, because when you come humbly before him, he will incline his ear to you. The other thing that the Bible tells us is that because we have a God who listens to us, therefore we can afford to listen to one another. Maybe you know James 1:19, but everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. Boy, that's a challenging verse, isn't it? But we can aspire to this. Why? Because we have a God who is slow to anger and quick to hear. I think that's what we really need right now, to listen to each other, to listen to the people we haven't been able to relate with as usual. Maybe they need help being drawn out and heard and understood. To listen to people that we have been cooped up with, because let's face it, we could probably do a better job listening to them too. To actually listen to people you disagree with or who make you mad so that you can develop understanding and empathy. Don't we all really want to be heard and understood? So let's be intentional about it. Let's get curious about what's on the minds of others. Let's resolve to ask more questions than speak our mind. Let's remember the wisdom of Proverbs 18:2, which says, "A fool does not delight in understanding, but only in revealing his own mind." You can't listen if you already know everything. You can't listen if you're self-focused, if you're dedicated to proving your point or winning. So that's my challenge for you this week, to find someone who needs listened to and listen. And if you can do it in person rather than online, all the better. See you guys.